But I'm saying this because मुझे एक crisis feel हो रहा है. We are in a situation where there are about 20 lakh registered advocates roughly, and 1 lakh lawyers are passing out every year. Do you think it's like an opportunity, or does it seem like a crisis to you?
I think it's a bit. Are they in a position to service clients and answer the societal problem? There is no better time to be a lawyer. That again, a lot of unanswered questions. Are you playing with?
आज का एपिसोड बहुत ही स्पेशल है एंड यू विल बी लाइक यार ये हर बार यही बोलता है, बट ट्रूली इस एपिसोड में हम एक ब्रूइंग क्राइसिस के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं जो कि 20 लाख लॉयर्स को अफेक्ट करेगा. और इस क्राइसिस को अंडरस्टैंड करने के लिए वी हैव समवन हु हैज़ मल्टीपल पर्सपेक्टिव्स एंड हु हैज़ बीन वेयरिंग मल्टीपल हैट्स. ही इज़ बीन अ फॉर्मर जज, ही इज़ बीन अ पार्टनर इन अ prestigious law firm. He's a practicing advocate today. He's an educator, he's a mentor, he's a writer. And in our episode, we decode everything what is required to be a successful lawyer with none other than and one of my dear friends, Mr. Bharat Chugh. इसमें free flow conversation हुई है on what is the problem facing a young lawyer's mindset and what are the right reasons and the wrong reasons why they should enter the profession. इसमें हम ये भी बात करते हैं कि what are the skill sets required to become from an average lawyer to an effective lawyer. And lastly, how to set up a successful practice where you're not only doing good work, but you're also impacting the society one case at a time. And this is your host, Rohan Batra. Welcome to Beyond Bailables, Bharat.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You've been a former judge. You're a practicing advocate. You're an educator, and you're a big-time mentor. Now, I'm obviously not saying this to flatter you, but I'm saying this because मुझे एक crisis feel हो रहा है. We are in a situation where there are about 20 lakh registered advocates roughly, and 1 lakh lawyers are passing out every year. Do you think it's like an opportunity, or does it seem like a crisis to you?
I think it's a bit of both. It is an opportunity because there's so much happening in the world, and when there is so much happening on the world, on the business side, or the kind of societal tensions and conflicts that we have in today's day and age, there's obviously that comes with a lot of opportunities too, right? So in some ways, there's no better time to be a lawyer, right? You have a lot happening on the commercial side, you have a lot happening on the tech side. The world is increasingly becoming one in so many ways. We're globalizing and so much is happening. International law has become more relevant or less relevant, but very important in any conversation also. So all of that is a reason why it's a good time probably to be a lawyer. At the same time, the problem actually is also sheer numbers of how many people are entering the profession every year, which should normally not be a problem because there is litigation. We need people. I think the problem is about quality. The problem is about, are people who are motivated by the right considerations coming to the profession? Are people who are rightly trained are coming to the profession? Are people coming to the profession for considerations which are not entirely conducive? Are they in a position to service clients and answer the societal problem? Do they have the education for it? Do they have the soft skills for it? Do they have the mindset for it? Do they have the training for it? That again, a lot of unanswered questions. And I think I'll spare no bones about it, and I'll say it as it is, that very few law colleges are actually doing what they are supposed to?
Wow.
Are they in terms of whether substantive law, in terms of procedural law, in terms of soft skills such as cross-examination, interviewing a client, getting a client in the first place, being able to respond to an organization, being able to getting your point across in a court of law, legal writing, all of that. Are law colleges preparing people, or are they just, many of them, just handing out degrees at the asking with very little quality control, and unfortunately, and I hate to put it this way, unleashing all of these people on an unsuspecting society. And many of these lawyers from day one, unfortunately, can take up an independent matter. And what we don't realize that that's a human life. That one matter, that one file that an independent lawyer gets,
It's not just a
is
file.
not just a file, it's somebody's life, right? And where is that quality control which ensures that you don't commit that error in a cross-examination? You do not make that one admission in the written statement which costs the client the entire case, their house probably, which is the only house that they have in a real estate matter. So these are some very, very serious concerns that I have. So that's the reason I said it's a bit of both. It's a great time to be a lawyer. We need them. But at the same time, there is a very serious quality crisis.
Tell me more about the quality crisis. When you say quality is not good, we are obviously talking about then the lawyers who are being graduated. Where do you see there is a fall in the quality?
I think the fall in quality is on a number of planes. One, of course, is the first principles of law.
Okay.
That's what law colleges are there for, should be there for. They teach you the law, as simple as that. It's a law college. So it teaches you law. Now, the difficulty is the way it teaches you law is extremely, extremely problematic. We've seen most law colleges conduct exams in a way where people get to know right before the exam that these are the 10 important areas on which we'll be asked.
Correct.
There would be very little application of mind. Probably you'll be asked what is that section or a subsection. I personally, by the way, love memorizing those sections, and I think it's an important part of being a lawyer. But the whole fetishization of knowing a section or probably a citation,
Citing a citation, a case law.
That I think, so obviously you need to know the most, let me not be mistaken at all, you need to know the most landmark cases or cases which really lay down the law. But just fetishizing memorization or rote learning for the sake of it is extremely problematic. It doesn't empower you to take that rule or the law or the section and apply it to a given world situation. At the end of the day, what do we do as judges and lawyers? We take a rule, we apply it to a given fact situation or a life situation,
Correct.
and then try to see if it measures up or not.
Yeah.
And how can we resolve this dispute? How can we make a life better? How can we get people justice?
Correct.
But this is a huge gap. People are learning or grabbing information. And there's simply too much information these days, not just in the law college. Maybe at some point we'll get into this on the abundance of information in terms of large language models of the chat GPTs of the world, right?
Yeah.
There's simply too much information already. But what you really need is perspective. What you need is synthesis. What you need is being able to absorb that information and making sense of it in an actionable way. That's not what the law colleges, unfortunately, are teaching. There are obviously other problems also. Attendance is a problem. Many law colleges would not enforce it. That's one problem. Second is how much are we making people think? That's another problem. Are you really making them think about a problem and solving it? Again, another problem is also the kind of, now, there's a huge emphasis now on internships, for instance. Now, I understand that, you need to get a practical dimension to what you learn at law college, but it is only after you've done the goods or lifted the goods, right? Without having those first principles, many people who also go to internships are not able to make the maximum out of their internship at all. Know the law and then go on to apply. It's a bit of both, right? And that's the order in which it should happen. If you've not learned the first principles of statutory interpretation, of tort, of equity, of common law, of the principles on which the whole structure is based, constitution, jurisprudence, for instance. But for some reason, I see there is a huge disillusionment with these first principles. Obviously, it's also very easy for us to be able to talk about first principles, and we keep telling younger colleagues and interns first principles, but nobody is able to sometimes tell them where those are and where do you find them. How do you discern them? How do you distill them? You've learned a section, but you've not learned the principle behind it, right? So there also, I think colleges have not done their bit, unfortunately. And even when these young kids, and at 36, that's how I look at them, they are pushed into internships without being given the right goods, and sometimes even after they graduate, must have interviewed hundreds and thousands of people over the last few years now. What I really think.
So that's important for me. What's coming out of that? You mentioned about the technical skill set, first principles. Some of the skill sets of a lawyer not being there, and they're being thrown into the profession like that. I follow. I perhaps resonate with you also. My personal view, not general view. But is there something wrong with the mindset that they have today? Is it because of that as well? I'm asking because I know, Bharat, you've met a lot of people. आपने सबसे बात भी बहुत ज़्यादा की है. तो उससे क्या निकल कर आ रहा है?
See, this is again on a mindset which is prior to law or outside of law. I think let's talk about what is it that motivates young people, who may not just be lawyers, right?
Yeah.
It's about what they prioritize, what are they looking for in terms of their life, who they identify with, who they want to be, what do they dream about, what are their aspirations, fundamentally. Now, a lot of people, and that's again a problem of the society that we live in. A lot of people are chasing, unfortunately, overnight successes. And in many cases, there may be overnight successes possible.
I was just
For
about
example,
to ask.
you may come up with an extraordinary brainwave of an idea in the tech space. You come up with a brilliant idea and you solve a problem, and your startup, goes up overnight, right? Or maybe in the show business or something. I don't know. But of all the places, law is not a place where you have overnight successes, or I would go to the extent of saying where you should have overnight successes.
Correct.
Law is something that takes persistence, time. As somebody said, it's a cliched thing, but it's very, very true, as most cliches are, that law is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Law is not just law. What do you know of law if only law you know? Somebody said, right? If you just know law also, if you memorize sections, that's still not going to make you a good lawyer or a judge, unless you know economics, you know sociology, you know society, you know history, you know anthropology. I'm not saying go become masters in all of this.
Correct.
But a basic understanding of all of this is extremely important, right?
Be well read
because
about.
that makes you more effective as a lawyer, more learned as a lawyer, because at the end of the day, you are dealing with human beings and their lives. If you don't have an idea of what that social context is, what is that problem that the society is facing, how am I solving it? Or for example, if you're doing a commercial matter, having an understanding of the macroeconomic aspect of India's economy or the world economy, or what does this transaction mean in the giantness of things, right? That makes you a better commercial lawyer, that makes you a better negotiator.
100%.
So now the difficulty is people are carrying the same mindset of other professions probably into law, and they're looking at being overnight successes, which is extremely difficult, and this is not how law works. Life ferments a lawyer. Sunlight, rain, difficulty, obstacles, sometimes being humbled in the court, because you went into the court thinking you know everything about the matter, and in a minute or two, you completely demonstrated to have not thought of so many things. It's a part of the learning. But the next time you go to court, you are probably prepared better, or you interview your client better. You do not commit the same mistakes. So life is preparing you for law. It's not going to happen overnight. And so don't carry the same mindset, because if you keep looking for shortcuts, again, biggest problem, and I'm glad you put the question to me, the biggest problem is the glamour associated with the profession, the romanticism of an extraordinary lawyer going and negotiating a multi-million-dollar deal, and at the same day arguing a murder case, and then cross-examining a witness, making the witness break down on the stand and confessing the crime, and then coming out with applause. That doesn't happen. And even if it does,
one day, it doesn't happen in one day. It happens maybe in 10 years.
It does, and it doesn't happen on its own. There are hundreds and hundreds of hours behind it.
Yeah.
Now, that's the part we need to teach. That's the part we need to inculcate. The glorification of all of this, and some of us are extremely moved by the kind of sitcoms that we've served on TV.
I was about to ask, where is all this glorification coming from?
So that's what's feeding them, this extremely, sensational and glamorized version of law. Law is actually real law is backbreaking. Law is boring in the sense
It's
that you have to.
dry, painstakingly
It's
long.
exhausting. It's detail oriented. It's sitting hours and hours with your books, with your bare act, looking at the same profession 10 times, highlighting words, going to the Black's Law dictionary and looking up the 7 different meanings of that word, going back to what was the historical context of the word, why did the legislature use that word, then going to the simplest textbook you can find on that subject, then going to a commentary, then probably the answer you are looking for would be hidden somewhere in the footnotes. Going back to that, looking at that judgment. Out of serendipity, you may be looking for a one issue, finding so many other issues when you are looking by sheer serendipity. And then one case at a time, becoming a slightly better lawyer every day. And it would take those years. And, I'm not saying there are 30 years necessarily. There are different trajectories and different learning curves for anything. But again, at no point you can say that you've done it. So this is the kind of discipline. I would always say discipline over talent. Integrity over intelligence. You may be a very, very gifted person. But at the end of the day, more often than not, the person who wins the client, wins the negotiation, wins the case in the court is the person who's worked the hardest the night before, who's read the most, who knows about the brief the most.
More well prepared.
Preparation. So that's the kind of, ethic that we have to inculcate. Attention spans are short. Maybe we can get into that at some point, social media and all of that. Attention spans are short. Focus is less. Concentration is less. And we need to make reading important again instead of just chasing the dopamine hits.
Yeah. No, I want to talk about each of these aspects.
Yes.
But मैं एक तरीके से एक जो freshly minted lawyer है उसके लिए fair भी होना चाह रहा हूँ. To give a balanced perspective, which is, let's go back to the 21-year-old Bharat, if I may. What was your outlook at that point of time versus how you're seeing a 21-year-old today entering your chambers? That if you can differentiate, or if there was a difference, I don't know.
Interesting now. 21 looks like such distant past also. Thanks for making me extraordinarily old and a fossil so early on in the conversation. So 21 again, a lot of what I'm saying, I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of what I'm saying is the benefit of hindsight. At 21, my concerns were a lot similar to how most law students or young law graduates are. Insecure about the future. If I go independent and practice law, would I have those cases? Would I be able to build a practice? Should I join somebody? Would I be able to survive in litigation without a lot of social capital? And some of the advantages that we see are associated with having a social capital, or knowing a lot of people, or
or maybe coming
from a certain college,
from a very good college, or from a very good neighborhood. It's a fact.
Yes. So some of those advantages I had not had. So yes, a lot of consternation, nervousness about those. But there was one thing that was clear to me even then, as it is clear to me now, is that there is only one salvage from, or there is one redemption from all of this insecurity, and that's knowledge. And that's language. And that's my ability to read and understand and put it as well as I can. And obviously the love for law,
So you're saying the love for law for you,
yes,
for the 21-year-old Bharat, उसके लिए वो law के लिए प्यार पहले से ही था. अगर ये मैं चीज़ें हटा देता हूँ for a moment, I want to dissect this a bit. अगर ये मैं हटा देता हूँ, then what are the chances of anyone who wants to enter into law surviving the race?
See,
I'll give you context. The reason why I'm asking this, Bharat, is मैंने अपने limited experience में जितना भी देखा है, after either a 2-3 year mark or a 5 to 6 year mark, एक lawyer starts shaking कि मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ. Should I even continue? Should I do some business? It's too much work. And there are many people who've left in front of me. Very smart people, hardworking people have just left. इसलिए मैं पूछना चाह रहा था, if I take away that passion, that love for law, that love for maybe the building those skill sets, reading, understanding, articulation, तो क्या उसका क्या चांस है? What are the odds कि वो survive भी कर पाएगा?
I think it's going to be a challenge, very frankly, because if you are law makes so many demands on you, right? On your personal life too. There are sacrifices to be made. In a lot of way, what we do is like medicine, right? The initial few years, you have to be at it. You have to keep doing it. The hours are extremely punishing and demanding. And that's how you also get better, right? Because the more you do, the better you get. The more
better you get.
patterns you've seen, the more patterns you can anticipate in the future. And which is in turn what makes you a better lawyer in the court, because you've anticipated it and you've seen it and you've thought about it, right? If you don't have a love for law as a subject, if it doesn't excite you, if it doesn't stimulate you mentally, if you're not curious in the sense that when a new problem comes to you, and we are problem solvers in a lot of ways, right? A difficult transaction comes to you, or a difficult criminal case comes to you, where you're trying to think of what can be my client's defense with all of this evidence stacked up against him. If you look at it like a curious person normally will, that first of all, I'll understand it really well. I'll ask a lot of questions. I'll get to the bottom of the problem. I'll try to see what the others probably could not see. I'll understand that area also, because every case also has an area behind it.
Correct.
A medical negligence case would have a certain amount of science behind it.
Yeah.
A criminal case would probably require you to know DNA, for instance, or weapons, or a gun, for instance, a ballistics expert, or handwriting examples, and all of those things, right?
Yeah,
So you become, for example, you're doing a AI versus copyright infringement matter, right? You'll have to understand some of that tech on how a large
also.
language model works. And that is the reason, if you're a dabbler, if you in the sense that you want to pick up new areas, you are interested in learning about them, you have that relentless curiosity that I'll figure stuff out. Figuring stuff out is a pleasure of its own.
Yeah.
You
get dopamine hits.
I know this and I can explain this. Or there's one more thing that I simply know.
Yeah.
If you're that kind of a person, and then you like then looking at the law and saying that, okay, I have a solution, and I can help you get justice, then you'll enjoy it, and that's the reason love is important and the passion is important, because that makes all this punishing work seem less tedious and less punishing. You learn to enjoy most of it. Some of the days when you worked the hardest would be the best days for you, because you could achieve what you thought was not possible. So it's better, I mean, if naturally so there is a kind of person also who sort of comes to law and then enjoys it, right? There's a personality type in that sense.
Yes.
We all may be on different points in that spectrum, but there is broadly a type. You're curious. Some of us are also, as I can go on and on, in love with our own voices. A bit of understanding of society and an interest in society, interest in people, right? And problem solvers, readers, people who enjoy reading. For example, if you don't enjoy reading, then unfortunately, let me break this to you, you'll find it very tough. For all the young lawyers out there, if you don't enjoy reading, you'll find it very tough, because there is an endless amount of reading. Your briefs are reading, your judgments are reading, laws reading, then there are articles that you have to read, then the briefs you have to read. So it's better, it comes, and if you enjoy reading, then it doesn't seem like work all the time, right? So it's good that you try to build that instinct. In any event, I think reading is a biggest sign of intellectual humility as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're reading, I think the first point that the reader thinks in his or her mind is that I don't know something, and that is the reason I picked up a book. So that intellectual humility helps. I'm sorry, I tend to meander also in some of the answers.
No,
Please
this
feel free to
is
stop
very
me when
helpful. In fact, you've given me a couple of strands for which I want to cover, reading, etc. Coming back, you're saying all this love for passion, for love for these skill sets, being that certain persona who's attracted to law is all helpful. But are these the reason people are coming for? Or I want to be very blunt about it. Are they coming in just by seeing a 6-7 figure salary, or by the charm of a designation? Like, what is your sense around it?
That's a very important question to think of it. Many people are coming So there is a certain type of people who are coming, for example, just to put it on the lighter side, या मैथ्स खराब है, इंग्लिश अच्छी है, बहस बहुत करता है, बोलता रहता है, फ्लुएंट सा है, तो लॉ में आ जाते हैं. एक तो वो है. एक सेट ऑफ पीपल वो होगा जिन्होंने घर में किसी को लॉ में देखा है, एंड दे गॉट अट्रैक्टेड टू दिस दैट साइड ऑफ द प्रोफेशन, और maybe that was the only kind of profession that they were really exposed to, and they thought, okay, let me do this. Those are one people.
Correct.
Now another set of people come in because of the glamour, really. Some of it in popular conception. Some of it is about a chase for some kind of a power, legitimacy. That so many people have come to me and they've said that, sir, we wanted to be lawyer or come to law because somebody in our family was facing a litigation, or family was facing a litigation, and we realized how important law is and how powerless you are if you don't have law. So that's one set of people.
It's actually true. Which is actually very true.
And extraordinary lawyers, by the way, have come out of those personal injustices.
Yeah.
And that's actually a very good consideration why you would want to be a lawyer, because you've seen injustice and you want to correct it for other people. There are public-minded people who also want to come, who want to be in public life and want to make a difference at some point, right? Then, of course, there are also people who think that this is financially also lucrative, but a lot of people who actually come to litigation or are looking at litigation, if they don't have that sort of privileges that some people have, then I think they have, from a majority of law schools in the country, those people know that litigation is actually tough. The 7-figure salary that you speak of, again, corporate law probably and some other kinds of law may give you that very, very early on, but for other litigators it's a struggle, but that's a struggle that they are willing to embrace, as it turns out.
Yeah, you're right, but I want to actually ask you this. Just before this, I was watching late Fali sir's video. This 3-part series he's created. It's I think everybody should watch it. So in his first part, and he quotes that paid salaries, fixed salaries, he uses the term, are the enemy of hard work because they make you slaves to it. And it's important not to have that when you're building a practice. Of course, he's coming from the background of how to be a disputes litigator, solo practitioner mindset. What is your personal take on it? Because I know you've done both and you are doing both. You've been in the law firm, you've taken a leap of faith, you're on your own now. So I want to understand this because I'll tell you why. And this might maybe help somebody who's watching it. बहुत लोगों को बहुत डर भी लगता है to start out on their own कि यार पैसे कहाँ से आएंगे. So first instinct is to go for law firm jobs. But I know the other day I was speaking to Raj sir when I told you. His thing was that अगर मैंने वो extra 40,000 ले लिए, मैं कभी अपनी practice शुरू नहीं कर पाऊंगा. तो in today's time you've done both. I want to understand from you कि how important is money, and when you're starting out, how to have this money concept in your life, how to go about it. Like, should it be the forefront, should it be the back of a mind, या फिर 30 साल तक wait करें and do it,
That's actually an important question and a difficult one, because a lot depends on where that individual is at that point in their lives, right? I can obviously say of what should be prioritized and so on, but only the wearer knows where the shoe pinches, right? So I'd also stop short somewhat of, probably pontificating a lot. But let me say this. If the need demands, and I've been there myself, I've seen want, I've seen that sort of struggle where you don't have a financial privilege. If that is what you need at that moment in your time, by all means, think about it, right? I don't think there is anything fundamentally problematic about a salary. We are all out for ourselves, right? I mean, you have to take care sometimes of your family, you have to consolidate your position, somebody may have to pay rent or, take care of their mom and dad, and they're not comfortable taking money from their parents anymore. They, by all means, do what is best for you, right? Nobody's
in your
here to judge,
personal
and nobody
situation.
should, in your personal situation, and nobody's here to judge, nobody should be judging, right? That's one part of it. Obviously, when you litigate, the immediate financial returns are not as big as probably in a corporate law firm or an in-house position or other things, right? Um, and that's again the nature of the game, unfortunately. Should the profession be a lot more fairer? Yes. Should there be basic minimum that juniors should get and deserve? 100% yes. Is there a reason to regulate this more and probably make it more fairer? Yes, 100%. But again, we have what we have as a situation, right? So as a young person, if and this is probably my advice, that if you need that money, then take up a law firm job or take up whatever job that gets you there. But if you want really to be a litigator, because I'm not a corporate lawyer, I can only say it from the standpoint of somebody who's a litigator. And your idea is to be in courts more and to be arguing your cases yourself.
Correct.
Then I think initially the good idea is to really prioritize learning first. If you can afford it, of course. Then if there is a choice that I'm getting paid slightly less here and more here, but here the learning opportunities are much greater, the diversity of matters is much greater, the mentorship is much greater, all of that, then probably I'd advise you to consider choosing this. And I'm repeating this again, even this option should not be for free or anything. You should never be made to choose between learning and getting paid. It should be both. But if there's difference, and if you can think slightly long term over a 3-year, 5-year, 7-year horizon, maybe learning may be prioritized more. And then obviously I leave it to the wisdom of the seniors to do the right thing as far as the juniors are concerned, but probably prioritize that. And in the longer run, the gains that you make from that learning, which is an extraordinary investment that you make in yourself, is going to give you returns which probably would be far greater than a salary in the longer run. Because once you start taking up independent matters and you proved your credibility and people come to you and they give you mandates, then the kind of fees that you can command with the right experience and the right skills and the right mentorship and the right opportunities, and all of this would come with the right opportunities. That's also the fatal flaw of the profession, the virtuous circle or the vicious circle. That initially you need opportunities to be able to even learn and prove yourself, right? If there are no opportunities, you may be an extraordinary lawyer, but how do you prove yourself? So gain those opportunities, gain that vital experience, and in the longer run, litigation would, if you've done it rightly, would probably reward you way more than what you think was the other option, which was probably a salary increasing over a decade or so.
That's the hope. So I want to ask you this. You've been a judge before. You started out, you were working in one of the finest firms in the country. Every time you made that shift from a judge to a lawyer working in a law firm to a private practitioner, if you can tell me about those leap of faiths you made, how did you decide to do it? Because in my perspective, I think those are very challenging leaps of faith, and it takes a lot of courage. So if someone who's listening to us out there, if they are making or thinking of that transition, so what should they keep in mind?
I think leap of faith is the expression. And I've had this, like a 3.5-4 year itch, so to speak.
I think मुझे लगता है you've invited it yourself. अब हो गया 3, एक और risk लेते हैं, एक और challenge लेते हैं.
What that sort of is, but I think one thing has remained consistent also, So the first principles sort of haven't changed. The love for law, the need and the relentless curiosity around it and wanting to do something with it, which ultimately helps people and also helps me grow intellectually, has been consistent. These are various means and modes of achieving that objective, right? Using law as an instrumentality to be a force for the good and also grow in the profession and grow as a person. So when the judgeship was happening, each of these shifts also have been different. Wanting to become a judge in the first place is a lot of it, and I've spoken about it. A lot of the reason was sentimental too. My dad really wanted me to be a judge. I did not have a lot of privileges, and I thought judgeship is also a good place to, be. You can use your legal knowledge to do justice. You can write judgments and help change lives. You can also be secure on the personal side. Let's admit it. That's what a young person also looks at. It's not just charity, right? So you said, okay, I'll use my skill of law and I'll also do something and give something back. Because a lot of people in law ultimately also don't just want to live for themselves, right? अपने लिए जिए तो क्या जिए, you know, we'll try to leave the world slightly better than how we found it, right? And we're all trying to do it in our own ways. So judgeship जब किया तो then I at some point, you know, I did realize, and I had an absolute good time doing it. It's such an opportunity to do good, you know, use the law to change lives, a bail application, an injunction application, protecting somebody's house from a demolition, giving somebody maintenance, and all of those things. Beautiful opportunity. And I loved especially writing judgments, you know, I've got a thing of a language and writing. But at some point, I also realized that, you know, a part of me always wanted to be an advocate. And the role is different, huh? And there's never a comparison between the two, and there should never be a comparison between the two. I wanted to also be a fact finder, a builder of conceptions, and not just an adjudicator. You know, when a case comes to you in an adversarial setup where both sides plead their matters, lead evidence, and argue, and you're the decider, right? So that has its own skill sets and own characteristics, you know, patience that runs deep and never dries up, you know, listening and all of that. As an advocate, obviously the role is slightly different, you know. You take a problem and you're trying to solve it, and you're trying to put it before the court in the most efficient and truthful, ethical manner, and trying to get the decision maker to see the world as you do. Right? Persuade debate, figure things out, setbacks, challenges, turn them into
that
opportunities.
That was pulling you to become an advocate.
It was always tugging at me because I had been a mooter and was always drawn to that side of the profession, and also wanting to do very different things every day. So at that point I realized that probably this is a little too early for me in life, and I'd want to make that leap of faith. But the question was, so I wanted to be an advocate. I didn't want to be a transactional lawyer because that's not something I've ever looked at, in the sense that never considered it. The question was, do I go independent then, or do I join a law firm or a senior to see and learn? Because, by the way, I became a lawyer at 21. I practiced for only 1.5 years independently. Which is, by the way, not something I recommend to the young folks out there who should look for mentorship in good chambers. But be that as it may, that was how it is for me. And then became a judge. So I'd not really explored the law firm side of it. I'd never seen corporate disputes. How do they pan out? I never had a sense of complicated international transactions and arbitrations, shareholders disputes, tech disputes, the corporate disputes side of it, and complicated disputes matter side of it. I didn't have that much exposure. So obviously that was, and I was 26, 27 when that happened. So the reason for joining, and I was very fortunate to be able to do that, was to learn some of these skills, learn the craft, because I realized that nothing's going to happen overnight. It's a long arc. You know, as a lawyer, you're always building one case at a time, piece by piece, for a larger battle that you'll fight. It's always a preparation, right? And all of this is adding to make you. And at some point, you know, and I don't think lawyers at any point thinks that they've done it, but it keeps building, right? And this was a piece of the jigsaw, so to speak, was missing. And I thought this would add to my personal growth, and obviously got great opportunities to work on a variety of matters, on corporate disputes, international arbitrations, white collar crime, all of that. Again, 3.5 years.
Fir chalang maar di.
But the idea, again, as I said, was to be in courts more. I was arguing my cases even at the firm, but given the sheer size and the kind of stakes involved also at a tier 1 law firm, and the kind of matters that we get, I was briefing. I was also probably at times second chairing or third chairing, but I was not getting to lead as much in as many matters, which is natural, which is the structure of any law firm. And I'd probably, as a young partner of 28, you're probably not leading on all your matters. So the idea was to be in courts more. The idea was, of course, also to try and create an institution oneself, because I have a way of, or I have at least a vision of advocacy, of writing, of the kind of relationship I want to have with my juniors, of teaching, of creating an environment where we absolutely love law, and it makes us, curious and interested each time a new legal issue comes up and a new case comes up. It brings a twinkle to our eyes. I want to create that environment of very, very like-minded young lawyers who want to practice law the right way and who are genuinely stimulated by it and love it to the bones. And I thought I'll create that institution. And so started off 3.5 years, 2021, the height of the second wave of COVID. I started with 2 juniors and 2 interns. And so सब आते गए, काफिला बनता गया, and never a day of regret for any of these leaps of faith. I've also been fortunate in a lot of ways, you know.
Did you second guess, Bharat, कि if I do this pros and con analysis, like if I do this and the practice doesn't go on for 3 years,
Yes.
तो मैं शायद वापस आ जाऊँ? ऐसा कोई thought process, or as some of the motivational coach people will say, you burn the boats, you burn the bridges, and you don't look back?
Mostly veering towards the latter. Thoda sa, you know, you can call it probably part delusion. You know, there's a very thin line that separates courage from somewhat recklessness too, right? And I've not had second thoughts. I've also not been in huge favor of you know, a lot of plan B's and C's and risk mitigation. I've been more of an all in sort of a guy, where you do it, you know, your plan A is so solid that you don't need a plan B, or your plan B is to make your plan A the best that you can. And if you keep telling it also to yourself, you know, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts.
Correct.
Yes, it's never been that I've not thought about what am I giving up? What am I gaining? What may be the challenges? How would I prepare for it? Always done that rational analysis to the extent possible. Tried to hedge my bets. Tried to know what is really my contribution, the need that I can fulfill. So there would always be a need for somebody like me in the profession. Always try to think about those things. There is always, again, some part of you is a little paranoid, is a little nervous on what's going to happen, especially in independent practice, you know. But again, when you take that leap of faith, and if you're all in, you are at it relentlessly, and failure obviously is not an option. You know it is not an option. Having, of course, some type of a war chest really helps. Let's talk about you know, fundamentals and practicals. If you have a war chest, if you've been able to save some, whether by way of working in a law firm or whichever way, and then you pursue your dreams and you get out there, that's obviously helpful. You know, that helps you put an office together, which helps you hire great lawyers to work with and give them what is rightfully due, and infra and, you know, research, books, libraries, all the ancillary things of making a legal practice good. That helps with all of that. But just to come back to complete the circle, I've largely just been all in. And failure not being an option, and then doing everything that you can to sort of...
These are a couple of, I think, good mindset of you should always have a plan A, and plan B can only be to make plan A stronger. Number 2, there is no such thing as failure, or failure is not an option. And third, you said going all in. I personally resonate a lot with all of this. Did serendipity, and that's the expression you used, did serendipity play a part when you started out on your own? और ऐसा कुछ याद आता है? I know I'm asking a second question. Where you believe, यार, ऐसे matter आया. This I'm connecting dots. This is not logic at all. Anything, any कोई story कुछ comes to mind?
See, most of the times it was, again, so let me illustrate it. 21, I've not had the benefit of doing too many internships, so didn't start with the law chambers or a senior, so to speak, in the conventional terms. And I wasn't too enterprising also back in the day, where I'd walk into some lawyer's office and request them for an internship and beg, cajole and pray to them to give it to me. वो भी मैंने नहीं किया. तो मैंने एक internship करी 5 साल में अपने law के KTS तुलसी साहब के पास. क्योंकि फॉर्चुनेटली वो क्या करते थे, आई थिंक वो रेज्यूमेज ना रैंडमली उनके ऑफिस शॉर्टलिस्ट कर लेते थे, तो वो इतना देखते नहीं थे लॉ स्कूल ये वो, जो कोई कंसिडरेशंस नहीं थे. सो पीपल ऑफ ऑल फ्रॉम ऑल ओवर द कंट्री फ्रॉम डिफरेंट लॉ स्कूल्स वुड गेट एन अपॉर्चुनिटी. आई गॉट दैट अपॉर्चुनिटी, आई वाज लकी. तो वो मैंने किया, बट उसके अलावा मैंने इंटर्नशिप नहीं की. तो मैंने क्या किया, आप क्लाइंट्स तो चाहिए आपको, पहले दिन से आप इंडिपेंडेंट हो. तो फिर मैंने लोगों के क्वेश्चंस को आंसर करना शुरू कर दिया इंटरनेट पे. याहू आंसर्स होता था, लॉयर्स क्लब इंडिया नाम का एक प्लेटफॉर्म होता था, वेयर पीपल वुड पुट अप देयर लीगल क्वेरीज एंड देन लॉयर्स वुड कम एंड ट्राई एंड आंसर. And then there would always be that sort of healthy competition between lawyers who's trying to answer it the best, probably with the best judgment, the most direct judgment, with the cleanest advice or the clearest advice, steps on how a litigant can go about. So that gave answering all of those questions gratuitously and obviously wanting to build a clientele helped me. Legal aid helped me. Now, so I had people know that I was a young lawyer who was always there, approachable, accessible, reading the law, there for you, the hunger of a young person wanting to get more and more matters. That started then at 21. So that again ended up doing a lot of matters then. Those people don't forget you. Anyone asks them, we need a lawyer. So I may have advised somebody on a matrimonial foreign divorce issue, that if you have a US divorce decree, is it applicable in India or not? But then that person also works in an organization. That person would also go and start a business. That person would have a series of relatives and friends in India. And sometimes they would be looking for a lawyer. And the first thing that pops up very kindly in the mind of this first client that you had is that let's have Bharat do it. I'm sharing his number. So one case at a time, one advice at a time, you try to build credibility. And then the word gets around that you are ethical, you do the best you can, and you'll fight hard, and you're accessible, and that's how you build cases, right? That's one way. Second was that you argued a matter, and that's I think that's what a young lawyer should aim at. You argue a matter in a court of law. The people in the court come to you and say, "आपका visiting card मिल सकता है कि नहीं hearing के बाद." I mean, that's a beauty, there's no better BD or anything like that, that's a proof of concept. You've done it in the court, and you are somebody who's probably not a senior, you've never appeared in that court before, you probably are up against somebody who has many more years than you, or a bigger office, and you are standing there, no interns, no juniors, with your own research. You've probably not done a dispute like this ever, but you are more prepared than them. And you are able to assist the court in finding out the answer, and you get a good audience, and people see what an effective lawyer, and then they look you up or they ask for your card. That's one way. So this is how it's gradually built over a period of time, and the word travels. And then serendipity happens. Your name comes up in a conversation somewhere with between some people who saw you, who read an article that you've written, who read a column that you've written for the newspaper or someplace, or somebody knows somebody and you've advised them. Or sometimes, and it's so bizarre, you've appeared for the opposite side. And the opposite side then thinks that, okay, if my relative needs it, although this lawyer is opposing me today, but tomorrow if my family needs a lawyer for something unconnected, we'll get him because he'll really put up a good fight. And seniors...
Has that happened to you?
Yes.
Wow.
Or seniors, of course, not to forget that at all. Seniors that you've briefed. Seniors who've seen and witnessed your work. That's also the kindness inherent in the profession also. There's so many seniors who are there to give you the opportunity if you are working very hard and you are ethical, and you've got broadly your... you need not be extremely genius or anything. Sometimes all that you need is somebody who reads up the law, reads up the facts, and does good client interviews, and then gets all the information, and then absolutely does his best regardless of the result.
And then this, I believe that this compounds over a period of time.
Because, for example, you've done a matter and somebody's seen you. That is not all sometimes, they'll still want to do some of their due diligence. They want to ask around. that we saw so and so. He was impressive in court, very well prepared, and the bench also was responding favorably to what they were arguing. And then they'd try to look you up on the internet probably, or they'd ask somebody who's a senior from your college, or some common relative or some common connection, and then if they further also endorse what you do, and for example, that further goes on to add and reaffirm their choice. The first conference that you do with the client,
Yeah.
the first conference that you do with the client, the kind of detail that you get into, how compassionate you are, how sensitive you are to their concerns, how well you understand what they are looking for as a solution, how you tell them the truth and not tell them, promise them the moon and then later disappoint them, manage their expectations, give them a clear, realistic picture. Most lawyers, Rohan, and you'd agree with me, you've got vast experience, most litigants are sometimes only want the law to be demystified to them, only want the process to be demystified to them, for them to have clarity and transparency on how the case is going to move. कि ये नहीं है कि एक साल में मेरा केस खत्म हो जाएगा. Sometimes they'll appreciate a lawyer telling them, sir, मैं आपको नहीं दे सकता timelines, मैं नहीं दूंगा. We'll try our best, but broadly these are the probable timelines.
2 से 3 साल या 3 to 5 years लगेंगे.
और ये लॉन्ग टर्म स्ट्रेटजी है. शॉर्ट टर्म स्ट्रेटजी है, ओवर प्रोमिसिंग, क्लेमिंग एन एक्सपर्टीज दैट यू डोंट हैव. For example, saying that, oh, I can do a GST adjudication dispute before the tribunal when you've not done it. And the best honesty is the best policy. Sometimes the client would appreciate you saying that I'm not the best mind on this particular kind of dispute, but I know somebody who does a lot of this. I'm happy to brief them and work collaboratively with them, but they are the best placed for you. And if I had a problem like that you have as a client, I'll go to them. And connecting those, the best talent with the need, they appreciate that. And that's long-term strategy. Then, you build trust, you build credibility, you build a reputation, and that travels faster and is even more important than talent. Reputation for fairness, reputation for honesty.
So if we were to design this question, which is, what is the difference between an average and an effective or an exceptional lawyer? How do we answer it?
I think bunch of things again.
Like just 5 things. Let's just focus on 5 things which you believe that, ये 5 चीजें makes an effective lawyer versus an average lawyer.
One, of course, is integrity. And there's also what I've kept on saying: integrity, industry, intelligence. And that framework, I think, is very important to me. If you have integrity, you're working hard, you're there, you're honest. Maybe you know less than the other guy. Maybe you are less intelligent, if you look at it that way. Although I don't believe a lot of these things. You consider yourself less gifted than somebody else. Somebody is quicker on the uptake than you. But if you have industry, over a period of time, you'd be a more effective lawyer because you've simply put in more hours. You've been more truthful to your job, right? So industry, number one. Integrity. And integrity, again, also manifests, one, with the client, with your work ethic, and also the reputation that you enjoy at the bar. And over a period of time, a lot actually depends on that. Why is it that sometimes some lawyers make a statement on a proposition of law, it is taken better than somebody else making that statement on a proposition of law? And this is natural, this is human, right?
Credibility. Yes.
Credibility. Because, at some point, the bench probably also believes that, no, this is not a person who would mislead us on the law. He's not a person who would conceal an unfavorable judgment. He's not somebody who will conceal a fact. He's not somebody who would not tell us that the judgment has been overruled. He'd normally also place before us, in all fairness, things which are against him. And then he'll put up a fight. He'll try to distinguish them. He'll try to put them in context. But at least he'll be fair to the court. He'll understand his obligation. And we keep saying, as officers of the court. But, it's a huge, huge responsibility.
So when you were... I know I'm taking you back from this question.
And I have 4 more points left on
Yes. But you raised an interesting issue. जब आप judge थे,
yes,
all these questions, were they in your mind? Is the lawyer telling me the right law? Or is he hiding some case law? Or is he telling me the whole gamut of law? Are these questions actually come to the judge's mind?
I'm so glad you asked that. So that judgeship experience taught me that if I may try to put it in one line, that the most effective form of advocacy is the person who assists the court the most and most fairly. You
Assist the court.
assist the court. So people who have, for instance, who are the smartest probably, who know the most law, is not necessarily the most effective advocacy at all. You need to identify that this unfortunately overburdened judge who has 150 matters on the board on a given day with administrative responsibilities, how do I make his or her job easier? And obviously, I'm arguing for a client, so I want a result, or I'm expecting a result, or praying for a result in favor of my client. But how do I make it the easiest? The judge is already drowning in a sea of documents, for instance. A sea of documents, hundreds of cases, right? How do you build a bridge as an advocate between the conclusion that you want the honorable court to lead to and the court? And how do you make this bridge the shortest? And how do you make this bridge the most seamless? And how do you do that? By careful marshalling of facts, by preparing elevator pitches for all of your cases. If you were to put your case in 1 minute or 30 seconds, how would you put it? So your most critical features of your case presented in a chronological, systematic, structured fashion for the judge makes the judge's job easier. Then they would say, oh, I'm inclined to look into this application. They are at least able to place it rightly, and it looks like a good cause also. Not just a good case, but a good cause. You made it easier. And that's oral advocacy. And that's also written advocacy with how your pleadings are drafted.
Yeah.
Are your pleadings filed, morass of facts, unconnected, non-chronological, non-relevant material and all of that? Or are they summarizing the issue that arises in para 1, then making headings, then making indexes, then short points, short paras, clear expression, visual aids, playing with a draft so that your draft is not like one paragraph of 30 lines. These are shorter paragraphs with sub-bullet points, sub-points to make it more absorbable for a busy judge. Are you playing with silences and blanks on the page well? That's again a science.
The
You
white
need to
space,
have
the white space.
the white spaces on the page. Like poets do this brilliantly, right?
Yeah.
When they write like 3 words in a line and then 5 words, and even the shape of the text is something. So are you using those meaningful silences and white spaces well? Written, oral advocacy. So to cut the long story short, judgeship taught me that the most effective advocates are the ones who assist me the best and make my job easier. It's a human thing, yeah.
And deciding the outcome.
In deciding the outcome and deciding it fairly.
Sure, we can be persuasive, but at the same time, we need to assist the judge.
Absolutely. And you're the medium, right? At the end of the day. Sometimes, unfortunately, and some people learn it the hard way, that this argument or this case is not about me. I'm a medium. So myself, you have to remove all of that from the equation. You are there to make your client's story or narrative be heard in the most efficient and fair manner possible. There's none of you involved here, If, for example, in a hypothetical world, the client could do it himself on facts and law, you wouldn't be needed.
Yeah.
The whole point that you're needed is that you can simplify.
You're the voice for the client.
You're the voice for the client who probably doesn't have a voice which could be heard in a court of law. You're trained in law, and you have the independence also and the detachment from the client's emotions to be able to put it before the court impartially and objectively. And that is what your reason for your existence is. And that is because once we become involved and we become characters, then sometimes it becomes about me wanting to make that brilliant point, which I know. And I probably would think that I know more. And I want to make that impressive point, and I want to play to the gallery. Some of the worst things that a lawyer can do. And alienate the court, and rightly so.